Hello everyone and welcome to the game analysis on the two board games, an assignment by Micah given from the HKU. So in today's video we're going to be discussing two games. One of them had to be in the top 50 board games ranked total, and one of them had to be the worst game I could get my hands on. So first off, let's start with the games I picked. To begin, I chose Dead of Winter, which is in the top 50, which is a game published by, Played Head Games. Its designer is Jonathan Gilmer and Isaac Viga. And I played this game with my friends, three of them, on Monday the 26th of September. So let's get into it. Dead of Winter. What is Dead of Winter? It's a cooperative game, which you can play with 2 to 5 players. It's a thematic game. It's about a zombie apocalypse, and you have to survive the winter. A typical game lasts about 60 to 90 minutes, and the goal is to work together to overcome certain objectives. However, there can also be a traitor in the game. So how does this work? All players are placed in a colony with some survivors in the post-apocalyptic winter, so be prepared to face limited food supplies, crises, zombies coming in. So like I said before, you work together. There's one main objective that the players all have to complete before the round of turns end, or you lose the game. And every player also gets an individual objective, either something that has personal gain or to work against the colony. So at each turn a crisis opens up, which is usually some sort of event like there's a starvation going on, so you need to have more food, and every player needs to pitch in to solve the crisis or to avert the crisis. For instance, there's starvation, and at the end of the round, so when all players have had a turn, you need to hand in 6 food cards. The funny thing about this is that you can contribute to the crisis staple in the crisis deck in your turn, but you can't let the others know what cards you put in there. For instance, like I said before, you need 6 food, and you decide to work against the colony. You can put in 1 junk, which will retract from the total number of food coming in. So for instance, if there's 6 food but 1 junk, your total accumulative is 5, so you didn't solve the crisis, and therefore every player loses some morale or becomes unhappy, or some people might get infected. So these resources, how do you get them? Well, first off, you get a starter deck, which consists out of 5 random cards. These items are typically some food, some medicine, some repairs, and from that point on, you're gonna run out of them pretty quickly. So what do you need to do? You need to go to nearby places. There's a gas station, there's a library, there's a hospital, and all these places have their own deck of cards, which hold items. So you go there and you scavenge the place for items, but there's also zombies, of course. So you have to watch out, because every round you have to, every time you travel, you have to roll an exposure dice, and it can either come up blank, which means you're totally fine. It can show a wound, which means you get 1 wound to your character, to your current controlling character, and there's also the chance of frostbite, which means you get 1 frostbite wound, and every turn after that you'll get 1 more frostbite wound until cured. However, keep in mind that if you have 3 total wounds, your character dies, and your morale of the whole colony drops by 1. So in total there can be 10 morale. You start at 5. Let's say if 5 colonists die, morale is 0 and you lose the game. However, you can gain morale by completing bonus objectives that are in certain crisis events. So you need, per instance, to go back to the previous example, you need 6 food to solve the crisis, but you can put in 8 food to boost morale and have everyone have some nice cakes, for instance. So every time you travel to a certain location, either from the colony or to the colony or in between places, you have to roll your exposure die. And there's also one last thing that can come up. That is the zombie bite, which immediately kills your character, but also all the other players in the area have to roll a dice, and it has to be 4 or higher, or their player gets bitten and dies instantly as well, and the infection spreads. So you can imagine if this thing goes to a base, it's a pretty scary situation, especially if the luck is not on your side. So furthermore, you have these places and you have these zombies that are at the places and they come to the colony, and you have to get rid of them at some point. Yeah, you get rid of the zombies by checking your survivor card, which has like this threshold you need to roll higher than. For instance, I played with Greybeard, the pirate, and he was really good at fighting, so I only needed to roll a 1 on my d6 in order to get a successful attack. If you get a successful attack, you still need to roll your exposure die, so you can either get infected again or get a wound, or you can just get the bite and die instantly. So attacking zombies is something of a important decision you need to make. And keep in mind that most of the times, depending on your current main objective, you get like 5 rounds total in which the game has to be completed or the objective has to be met, or else you lose the game and the zombies win. So, what did I think of Dead of Winter? I really enjoyed it. I think our session lasted about 70 minutes. And let's discuss the good and the bad. So, first of all, your choices matter. At some point I decided to go on a killing spree, because our main objective was to gather as much zombie heads as we could. I think we needed 12 to win the game, and you'd get a zombie head by killing a zombie and then rolling a 4 or higher. So I went out with my pirate and I figured, well, what the heck, let's go. Also, because I had a card that said if you finish the game and the main objective has been met and you have a survivor which has 2 wounds on them, you win. So I figured, let's go kill some zombies, let's get some wounds, and we'll help the group. And of course the first zombie I got to, it bit me and I died. So your choices do have some consequences. Also the fact that everyone gets this objective card, the personal objective card that either, like in my case, has a personal objective, for instance the 2 wounds, but you can also get a secret objective and work against the colony. So Tim, the friend I was playing with, had this objective that said help the colony reach 0 morale within 4 turns. So it's a co-op game, but there can be a traitor among your midst. Furthermore, the game was really beautiful. The art style was really cool, and it really added to the whole theme of it. It was quite welcoming to new players, as in one of our players, Rolf, he had some experience with the game, and we, as in the other 3, didn't, and we really enjoyed it nevertheless, and things weren't all that confusing. I mean, you pick up on strategy pretty quickly, and I think the personal and common goals combined, they work really well. Downside is I would have preferred some sort of system whereby, for instance, in our match, I won the personal objective, Rolf won the personal objective, and Koen also won the personal objective. I'd like some system where we'd be able to determine the overall winner. And there's also, during your playtime, there's some event cards which you can pick up or go into, and you either get bonus supplies or get screwed over by the game. So the bad thing about this is that about the game is that zombies don't feel all that dangerous, or at least not in our run. We had some pretty good luck, apart from my pirate dying quite early. So we kind of blitzed through the game. We never ran out of food, we didn't have starvation, and everything was pretty much fine and dandy. So it went really by really quickly, which brings me to my second point. Getting lucky means you are practically unable to lose. So, on to the next game, Gravediggers. Gravediggers is a game that has been published by Piatnik and Twilight Creations. Its designer is Rainer Knitsche, and it's a game about bluffing, memory, and horror. It's about these mayors who decide to make some more money by digging up their own graves and bidding on them. So it's a game for 2 to 5 players. It's all about the bluffing and the bidding, and it lasts about half an hour. So how it works is you start with 5 graves, regardless of players. You have some cards and some currency, and each turn you flip a card from the table deck. On the table deck, it can be if there are actions. For instance, a card can say place, which means you can place a card from your hand into someone else's grave. And these cards, they can be anything. You can place guards, you can place bandits. I'll come back to them later. Or you can place currency or multipliers. So anyway, you keep flipping cards from the table until the Gravedigger card is flipped, and then the current player can select a grave to rob. So basically you will start bidding on that grave. And in the grave several cards can be present. For instance, if there's just a single widow with some guards and some bandits, the widow distracts all the guards and the bandits, so they don't have an effect anymore. So basically you remove all special effects and you get some currency if you win the roll. However, if there are a lot of bandits and not enough guards to stop the bandits will go home with the loot and all the biddings. So you really need to be mindful of how much you're bidding. You can help determine how much you should bid by having special cards, which you can use to look into a deck or open one card of a deck, which you can play at the beginning of your turn. So it's really important to memorize all the graves for when bidding starts. For instance, if you know there are several bandits and no guards in a grave, of course you bid low or you don't bid at all. So the game proceeds like that until all the cards from the deck have run out. Because whenever you play a card in your turn, you pull a new card from the deck. So if the deck is empty and one player finishes their hand, as in places their last card, then the game's over and you accumulate the points and you check who has the most, and that is the winner. So, on to the good and the bad. I like the fact, the good, that it's a new style of bidding, as in you need to really memorize the multipliers, the guards, the bandits, the widows. It's also a game that doesn't really take that long, and there's not that much tactics involved per se, so it has a nice flow to it. And I like the fact that memory is important, so you need to do kind of stay clear with your head and really pay attention to the game. The bad, as you might have noticed from my presentation, every piece in the game, be it a card or a deck card or a table card, it all uses the same artwork, which is really uninspiring. Also, at some point you kind of know what is in each grave, so you never bid on it. So you often have 1 or 2 graves that are pretty good, and you have a lot of bidding on them, and the other graves are just disregarded, which is bad for gameplay. And last but not least, the game is kind of duration-wise in a weird place, where it doesn't take all that long, but in the end all people still get kind of bored because they can grasp the flow of the game. So I'd say either make the deck of cards a bit smaller, or invent some new system where there's some more exciting stuff happening. So that were my 2 games. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.